let's discuss sailing. So I have a Reddit post pulled up here, which we will look at. It's called A Critical Look at Sailing, and I thought it was very well written. It wasn't from a guy that appeared to be just shutting down sailing completely, but he brings up some good points. And toward the end of the video, I'm going to bring up my thoughts on sailing and my criticisms, as well as the things I think are good about the skill. So this is kind of like a comprehensive thing. I don't know how much we'll cover on the Reddit thread. We might just go down the whole thing. It's a pretty beefy thing. And then maybe we'll cover some of the comments as well. And I want to get your guys' feedback, of course. So leave it all down in the comments. And also, if you guys didn't know, I ran a little poll on my YouTube about 4 days ago. It was like a pre-alpha poll. Like, how do you guys feel about sailing? Those 4 options, like extremely excited, and then like extremely negative, and then 2 in betweens. And we're going to run that again and kind of gauge how at least my YouTube audience feels about sailing post-alpha. So look forward to that. I'm kind of excited to see the results. Also, all of these rambles are on Spotify, and you guys would do me a massive favor by clicking on that link down in the description and following the show on Spotify if you guys use it. There are video rambles now, exactly what you're watching right now, with comments as well. The Spotify audience is just so wholesome. I just love them. So yeah, jump over there, give it a rating as well. I would really appreciate it. I am trying to grow the Spotify over there, and also the Sabecast will be linked down in the description in case you guys want to watch full video episodes as well on Spotify. And if you have Spotify Premium, it's ad-free as well, so that's cool. Anyway, let's get into this. A Critical Look at Sailing. So this is by Judas Nevermore. For the sake of honesty and transparency, I have been a critic of sailing from its inception. I personally just couldn't see the vision. When a new skill was being voted on, between taming, shamanism, and sailing, a lot of people who were team sailing kept mentioning things like Sid Meier's Pirates and Sea of Thieves. I knew that sailing in RuneScape would not be like that. It simply can't be. I felt like people had a romanticized view of what sailing was going to be, and after playing the Alpha Foley, completing all of the content, even achieving Marlin rank, and for a significant length of time, those feelings have been confirmed. So I do feel like that was an issue with sailing, just the fantasy of it all, like just imagining how big in scope this could really be. BC Guppy and I, for anybody that listens to the podcast, BC Guppy is like, I mean, we're just like bread and butter when it comes to the podcast. He was on at like the really early episodes. He's been on several times, but in the first 2 episodes, we were talking all about sailing, and I was just thinking of every possibility with it, like the perfect vision of it, kind of, without even thinking about how the RuneScape engine actually works. So I feel like a lot of us may have been in that place, imagining how cool sailing could be. And that's a good point. So let's continue covering this before I start sharing more. Back in March of 2023, I posted this comment on my thread about the sea scaling needing to be fundamentally changed. The most recognizable parts of RuneScape map are already too cluttered for sailing to bring anything worthwhile there. Obviously, sailing can work if we take into consideration all parts of Gielinor. Lots can be placed between Prif and Kourend around the Northern Isles, even south of the Isle of Souls, even the bottom left of the map. So he's basically just saying, like, in sailing, let's expand the map or like kind of space things out a little bit. And toward the end, he says, the map is a bit archaic. It's a relic to a time where you couldn't even run on RuneScape. There were no texture packs that increased your draw distance. You never noticed anything that was just a stone's throw away from each other. Unfortunately, that comes with the difficulty of adding new content to an already saturated location, and sailing is one of those things for me. So I personally don't have that big of a gripe with just the tightness in certain areas of the water, as long as you can manage it. I think this is another thing that's like a fantasy of like, oh, imagine they could just magically spread things out a little bit more so there's more space in the water. Realistically, that would be a nightmare to solve, a genuine nightmare, because it's not just like, okay, like space things out kind of. It's like, what the fuck is going to happen to the land? You know, that's going to be jarring, being on the land and having to run further because you're just like, it's just everything's been stretched, you know? So many of the comments that were ostensibly pro sailing were hopeful that if sailing does pass, then Jagex will work on that front. Sailing passed, I maintain hope that those comments were right, but then Jagex posted this in particular. So again, this is his grievance. I don't think many people really care about this ultimately. I think in theory it would have been cool, but They say, unfortunately, we're working with a map. This is Jagex, working with a map that was created back when sailing was but a twinkle in the dev team's eye. It wasn't designed for people to maneuver ships around the shoreline. It was designed to pack as much cool content into the smallest space possible. We've already mentioned the Karamja Crandor problem, but there are many other places where certain zones are visible where they shouldn't be. How do we solve this problem? We'll rip the Band-Aid off quickly. We don't plan to scale up the existing ocean map. Part of what makes sailing exciting is the ability to see old locations in an exciting new way, and warping the existing map would take that excitement away. We want sailing to integrate with the world, not change it beyond recognition. On top of that, changing the existing map would mean devoting weeks of development time to shuffling islands about, instead of working on all the new features that would make this skill great. That's not what we want, and we're pretty sure it's not what you voted for either. Yeah. So again, if it was like a very simple fix, that would be cool. So again, he's just saying, in short and slightly callous, Jagex said we recognize this as an issue, but we don't spend dev time changing it. So let's see what he has to say. After playing around with sailing, I actually think Jagex did a good job with the way sailing feels in the small sea space that we have. While the idea of having what is essentially a canoe with a sail doesn't sit well with my brain, the feel of sailing feels pretty good until it doesn't. During the Barracuda trials, I found that every small limitation that RuneScape has, whether it's engine issues or ping issues or desync, is felt pretty heavily in the Barracuda trials. The hitbox of the ship crates were inconsistent. On one run, I'd hit a crate with no issue, but on the next run, in the exact same parameters, it would miss entirely. Yeah, that really does sound just like true tile kind of bullshit. So, makes sense. You know how your true tile is different than your character's running animation? That is really felt during the Barracuda trials, where your body is larger than a single tile. Sometimes I would bounce off terrain despite not being near it. Sometimes lightning would hit my ship despite the fact that I'm not even under the cloud yet. Then it would hit me again despite the fact that I'm past the cloud. At the end of the day, I still achieved Marlin rank, but it certainly wasn't an experience that I would say was enjoyable. With that said, I understand it is still an alpha build of the content and that it is subject to change. Maybe on launch, the hitboxes will be slightly bigger, the course might be modified, and there will be less latency-related issues, but as it stands, the Barracuda trials left a lot to be desired. As for the rest of the alpha, I didn't care for it either. Cargo missions were reskinned fetch quests, and I don't think I've ever played a game where fetch quests were popular. It's true. Charting is just reskinned collectibles done in a few different animations, and while they may entice a player to explore, with too many of them, it starts to feel like a Ubisoft game, and players will simply ignore them. Yeah. I'm going to have some thoughts on this, of course. Overall, these are simply my opinions. I don't have to like sailing. If I don't want to engage with sailing, I don't have to. That's the beauty of RuneScape. But I want to talk about something that I find slightly worrisome. In the Sailing Refinement Survey and Stages Summary, Jagex showed the results of a survey they had recently put out to gauge people's overall opinions and attitudes. And in these polls, out of all the categories, they talked about the two main content pieces that we've seen polled the least popular: courier missions and navigating challenging sea terrain. Jagex's response to this was, we thought that navigating challenging sea terrain would score much higher than it did after all. It's a key part of sailing in real life. Plus, we really believe in this idea and think it'd be cool. Now, we don't mind dropping this idea, but we do plan to present some more concrete ideas before writing it off completely, which I believe was Barracuda Trials. What I find most interesting, this is back to him, about the alpha was that Jagex focused on the two least popular mechanics and have showcased none of the things that we were excited for. And maybe this is just the first alpha build, maybe the next alpha build will have combat and a sea boss, but the skill is slated to be released in autumn of this year, which is 6 to 9 months away, not a lot of time. And right now, all we have are mediocre activities that pulled the lowest on the list of activities, and they're not very fun. This, along with the C-scale comments from earlier, makes it feel like Jagex has a vision for sailing, and our polls and opinions won't truly affect that on a fundamental level. Getting close to the end, further, Jagex stated, to be clear, sailing will not be sea agility. But think of the Hallowed Sepulchre. This was a fun, high-octane take on a movement skill, and we believe that navigating challenging sea terrain could do the same thing for sailing. Imagine carefully weaving around a whirlpool or cutting through a dangerous storm. There are all kinds of challenges you might face on the open sea. I don't know. We already have Hallowed Sepulchre. It's a minigame. Why do we need water Hallowed Sepulchre with some close scroll step mechanics thrown in? I don't want to run cargo missions for X amount of hours until I can run water Hallowed Sepulchre for Y amount of hours until I can do water Slayer so that I can finally unlock the new rated 80 sailing. We already have that content in the game. I wanted something new, something fresh and exciting, and sailing hasn't been that. Maybe I should be more hopeful, but I've been hopeful for nearly 2 years. I haven't seen anything that excites me about sailing, but maybe there will be soon, I hope. So we're going to cover some of these comments really quick, and I, again, encourage you guys to leave some of your own comments. I'm going to share my grievances. Many of them have nothing to do with what he said, but I do want to address some of the things that he did say. But let's cover some of these comments. It's great to see a breakdown like this that's well thought out. I feel like all I've seen on this sub is people glazing sailing and downvoting anyone who doesn't agree that it's incredible. I want sailing to be great, but I feel like well thought out criticism like this will have a far better impact on the final product than just yelling, "It's so smooth and fun," over and over. It's a good point. On both extreme ends, pro sailing and anti-sailing, there's the lunatics that are just like, nothing that sailing could ever present would be a fail in their eyes. They're like, this is just amazing. And I think it's kind of to counteract the negativity, because the same thing goes on the extreme anti-sailing, which is just no matter what you present me, I'm going to say, fuck you, vote no. And so I feel like there just has to be that kind of pull. It's the same thing with politics, let's be honest. But so people will just go to the absolute extremes because by conceding any point, it's just going to make sailing look bad. Like if somebody was super pro sailing and ultimately they wanted to pass, it would be a detriment to them to start listing some of their grievances with it. So I understand completely. Yeah, so I'm going to just read some more of these. So good take, well written, and I with a lot of it, to be honest. Deep Sea may be good, but areas around Serum is super janky. So let's see. I think you bring up a good point with the least popular features from the survey being the main ones in the alpha. While I personally enjoyed them more than you have, it is a bit disappointing that there's not more here. I think it makes a lot of sense that they're the most fleshed out activities, though. Per my understanding, a significant core of the development up until now has been engine work and just figuring out the movement. That being said, or that being done, movement related activities being the core focus of this test makes perfect sense. Let's see what else. I feel as though sailing may or may not be expanded between now and release. Them releasing it this year is unfortunately more than a little worrying in the state. I'm very, very cautiously optimistic about it, and I can see how it would be an amazing skill to have over time with new updates, quests, leveling alternatives, and such. But right now, from the little we've been given, it's not looking the best in my opinion. I think that's also important to recognize is the things we have seen, we shouldn't shut down criticism just with the illusion that, oh, it'll just be fixed. Like, this is just alpha. We need to share what is wrong. We need to share the things that don't feel right. We need to share, whatever else is just bothering us about the skill, because it's not just going to magically get fixed and we're just thinking, oh, it's an alpha and everything will be great. So before we continue on, there's a lot of comments here. I want to share some of my personal points. And I went into the alpha. To be fully honest, was not in a great mood that day because I was suffering with allergies and I just kind of felt puffy eyed, and I'm just logging in, and then I have to do a quest before I can even get on my boat. And I'm just okay. And I'm going to also be very honest with you guys. Most new content, I'm not the person that's going to jump into it and be super excited about stuff. I usually wait to do quests and stuff. I usually wait to do other things until they're kind of solved. And so I know full well I am not the person that is going to just enjoy things off the bat, and that is totally okay. But I'm going to share my honest feedback with you guys about how I felt during the alpha playthrough I did. And I think I made it to not even level 10 because I was genuinely bored out of my mind. So I completed the quest. I started doing some cargo missions. I did the little watchtower, or the wizard's tower, looking through the spyglass thing. And my biggest grievance was how slow the boats are. They were painfully slow. I mean, genuinely, it felt claustrophobic. On top of not being able to see the map, that's grievance number 2. We need to have the largest render distance available. We need to have such a long draw distance so we can see everything. I hated the fact that I didn't know where the hell I was most of the time. I know that'll obviously improve with sailing. The more you're just sailing around, you're just going to recognize where you are. I had no fucking idea where I was. So I was pulling up my map all the time, so disoriented. And I just couldn't see anything. So that, when sailing drops, I'm saying when, because I'm almost 100% positive sailing will come into the game. And I'm trying to act as if it's coming into the game. So these criticisms are like, what can we do to make sure sailing is in its best spot? And that is, we need massive render distances. We just need to. And the boats need to go faster. I mentioned this in my stream and people were like, oh, I hadn't even thought about that. I want to bring up an example. Have you guys ever walked around in this game? It fucking sucks. Walking in this game makes everything worse. Genuinely, every activity in this game is 100% worse by walking. Running makes things feel good and smooth. That's why Leagues is amazing. People literally memed on Walk Andes on Twisted League, that first league that came out, because people got to choose if you wanted unlimited run. Moving slow in any game feels like shit. And the boat, when I was on my boat, it felt so sluggish. And the really concerning thing is nobody's talking about it. And so I feel like, am I the only one that just has this problem? What's going on? Are people just glazing it so hard that they won't see how much better it could be being fast? Maybe some people have pointed it out, but I haven't heard anything. And that's very concerning to me, because that was my number one issue with sailing, was this boat is moving slow as hell. And I don't think it's going to get any faster. In my stream, people are like, oh, well, I think we're just using the crappy boats and they're going to get faster and faster. I don't think so, because when I was watching people do Barracuda trials, I didn't even do it. I was watching a bunch of streams. I was hopping through Hebox, Ari Slash, Verf stream, like just like a bunch of people's streams. And Barracuda trials has kind of the same speed, and then there's like massive speed boosts that you're going around. And I just don't see you being able to have a default faster speed, and then Barracuda trials is kind of like that same speed. The way you were zooming in Barracuda trials, like when you're actually picking up speed, that's the speed I want to see all the time. Genuinely, I want to be zooming on my ship. I just do. It would literally be more fun. I started catching myself doing cargo missions and feeling relief when I boarded the dock. Like when I got off of my boat, I felt relief. That is very concerning to feel that way. I genuinely felt claustrophobic on the sea. I felt sluggish. I felt like I couldn't move properly, and I hated it. Like, I did not like it. That is my honest feedback. I did not like being on the sea. It was kind of cool for like the first couple minutes. And then I was like, get me off this boat. Like, I want to start running. Like, I just want to start moving. I want to feel like I have control. And it's not even really about the control thing. Obviously, we'll get used to sailing with the controls and the mechanics. But the speed is a huge problem in my eyes. It's the biggest problem. Render distance comes next. The other thing is animations. I know we're in an alpha, but the blue carpet is not doing it for me. Having a little ship on a blue carpet doesn't look good. They need to have water animations. So I want to see, like, you know, like the front of your boat, I want to see water, kind of like a ripple wave going. So it literally looks like you're moving. That adds something. And then have a little water trail behind the boat. I don't feel like that's too much to ask for. I know we're in alpha, that might be coming, and also water textures are probably coming. So that's why I'm not making a huge point on this. But I want the ship to feel like it's getting momentum and it's coasting, you know? The other thing on momentum actually is we are playing a video game, and a video game should be primarily fun. And when I get on my boat initially, I'm going to bring up this example that I brought up on stream. It's not a great example, but it might give you a feel for how I feel about getting on a boat. It's like going to TOA and the first thing you have to do is monkey room. It's like, it makes me not even want to do TOA because I have to do monkey room first. And again, they've updated monkey room, so it's much better now. But back in the day, it was like, ugh, I don't even want to go back in. But the rest of the raid seemed relatively fine, but it was just that initial part. And when I get on a boat, for the most part, it's pretty clean. I'll give them credit where it's due, where you just like, you click the dock and you're on a boat. But I don't like having to build up momentum in a ship. And I want it to feel like Mario Kart, where when the beginning of the race starts, if you hit the A button on the proper tick or, you know, in the game, you get a speed boost. So what I would love to see personally is when you are off, when you're starting your ship, I want to have like some sort of like double tap or something like that. Like something where you click twice on any point in the water, just something like that. And if you click twice, it just gives you like the speed boost, like right off the bat. So you're just going, and then your boat's moving faster. And I just want to move fast. Like, I just want the boats to fucking go faster. I want it to feel good. I want it to be like, you get on you're off the dock, you're on your boat, boom, moving, sailing, fucking wind in the hair, or hair in the wind. God, I don't have any hair, so it just, can we please make it so it feels really good being on the sea? I did not like being on the sea. I didn't like it. And the other concerning thing that I'll bring up is, it seems like for me, sailing is about the exploration. It's about me getting to a new island, and it has nothing to do with actually sailing. I just wanted to explore new islands, and I recognized when I was going around to new islands, I couldn't dock any of them, and I wasn't willing to like train up and do more cargo missions and shit to build up the level to get to those points. But that is the exciting thing, is these new islands. I think that's phenomenal. I think that's what sailing is really like. That's what speaks to me, is being able to get on a boat, travel to an island, and then explore the island. When I was watching people do the little like 2-tick whatever things pulling up stuff from the sea, I'm sorry, that's just like, you might think that would like be my cup of tea, just like 2-ticking shit and stuff, but I'm like, that's not even sailing. This is just feels like mining or something. Like why can't sailing be moving your ship across the ocean? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm concerned with many things, but I like the concept of sailing. I still want sailing to be in the game. I just want it to feel better. I want to be on the sea and feel like I'm moving fast. I have way more control over the boat. It picks up momentum immediately. And yeah, that's my overall thing, is the boats just don't move fast enough. That's my number one complaint. And I really hope there's other people that feel the same. As soon as I mentioned it on my stream, many people agreed, but they just hadn't thought of it yet. So I'm very curious what you guys have to say in the comments below. I know I sound like almost wound up by this whole thing. It's because I want sailing to be good. And I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. I don't think, if it dropped as is, like with the current boat speeds, which is my main grievance, I would be very concerned. I really would. Now, I don't know if Jagex even has the ability to change boat speeds. There might be some engine limitations. There might be problems with just Barracuda trials getting involved, or there might be problems with just how the boats are actually coded with the tiles and stuff. But I want my ships to go faster. I do. And you know what I also want? When you click the little sail to like trim your sails or whatever and go fast, that needs to be way longer too. I want it to be even faster. Like optimally, I would love to see the ships go like 75% faster than they do right now. And then that little boost gives like another 10% or 20% or whatever. So you're just always zipping around. I just want to be zipping around. I want to see the whole land. I want to see the whole sea. I want to see where the islands are way out in the distance. I want the animations to be going. And I just want to be zipping. Anyway, my overall thoughts, and I'll share more. I have Mod Husky and Mod Lenny coming on the Sebe cast on April 2nd. That episode will probably drop the next day. And I'll be honest with them about how I'm feeling about it, but ultimately it is more of a community-ran episode. So I made a Reddit post, and there's going to be a lot of discussion on what the community thinks. So it's not going to be, the episode's not going to be about me. It's not going to be about my stuff, but I will mention it at least. And speed is the biggest thing. So let me know down in the comments. This is pretty long-winded at this point. There's obviously so much more in this Reddit thread, so I will have it linked also down in the description. But as I said in the beginning of the video, if you guys want to support me greatly, you will go follow the Spotify Sebe Rambles down in the description. Click on the link. Give it a follow if you're on Spotify at all. And also I'll have the SebeCast link down there as well in case you guys aren't on Spotify yet. So thank you guys as always. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.